Giving you the information you need. This is Inside the News. Here's Guy, Ben, and Frank.
Welcome back to the program, Inside the News. So glad that you are with us, and all across the country on our radio affiliates on YouTube and on the AUN TV network. We thank you so much for having us on the 10 stations that are out there in Northern California. Ben Brunson, bottom middle, top left is Frank Vernuccio. Frank, let's get right to you. The attack on religion, and then ultimately the attack on Christmas. Go.
Well, it's customary this time of year to note how institutions are aghast at the thought of someone saying Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah. But it's taken a significantly different meaning this year. It's not just a corporate shill afraid of somehow offending somebody by saying Christmas or Hanukkah. It is now part of the COVID story. We are told that it's okay to congregate by the thousands in a Walmart store, but to go to a socially distanced church is somehow a catastrophic event. I guess we're being told that if you are a Black Lives Matter or an Antifa folk who want to congregate by the thousands in a street corner demonstration, burning and looting along the way, you present no worry, no concern for the spread of COVID. But if you dare set foot in a church, well, heaven forbid, you're going to be a COVID spreader. What this is all about is the traditional socialist dislike of religion. Anything that has a grasp on the heart, the mind, the soul, or the conscience of the public, other than government, is considered a threat by the left. They have to be the be-all and end-all of influence on the populace. And so the concept of religion outside of the control of a central government is absolutely anathema. Therefore, let's close down the churches, is their cry.
Ben, you said that it's all going to end up with SCOTUS, and if it wasn't for their ruling, churches would almost be banned because they stepped in and said, oh, no, that is the right to assemble and the freedom of religion there, Ben.
Yes, and a remarkable ruling, remarkable because it was a 5-4 decision. The Supreme Court decided that we actually do have a constitution and we actually have rights under that constitution. What's remarkable is that 4 justices apparently were willing to scrap the Constitution and ignore it and say it no longer applies because we have a disease where 99.9% of the people survive. It's really a remarkable statement. And thank God 5 justices stood up for our Constitution, but we are in a sad, pathetic state of affairs that was not a 9-0 vote defending our constitutional rights that are so clearly laid out in the Bill of Rights and the protection of religious freedom and the exercise of that religious freedom. So that's where we're at, and we're going to play it out again. And I have no doubt that in what I said earlier in the show was probably the most consequential case to come before the court in 100 years or more, a review of this election and the fraud that took place. If there's a ruling, unfortunately, I hate to say it, it'll probably be a 5-4 ruling. And we'll see if we even get that far. But if we at least get that, there's hope for our republic.
Frank, the most consequential part of our history of the United States is happening. I mean, we're living in it right now, aren't we, Frank?
Yeah, there's the old Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times, and these are certainly interesting times. Going to Ben's point, during the nomination, I believe it was Associate Justice Kagan, she was asked a direct question, and she said, do the rights come from government or come from God? That was the essence, of course, of the Declaration of Independence and the inspiration for the Bill of Rights. And her reply was, well, they come from government, basically. And that was an overturning by that nominee, at the time nominee, of the entire concept of what America was formed for and what it was all about. Those brave patriots, starting in 1775 in Lexington and Concord, made the point that our rights don't come from the king, they come from nature or nature's God, as it was said in the Declaration. What Kagan and what the left are saying is altogether different, and what they're doing now is altogether different. They're saying, you only have the rights that we as a government deign to give you. We are fighting today, Guy, the exact same battle that was fought on the fields of Lexington and Concord on 1775. Will the outcome be any different? We're going to have to wait and see.
The very fabric of this country is at stake in these next few days, weeks, and months. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be back as we put a bow on the program. We'll be back.
You're listening to Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio, Inside the News. Let's go back to Guy, Ben, and Frank.
Welcome back to our last segment of Inside the News, and this is where we put a bow on the program. Ben Brunson, Frank Vernuccio, myself, Guy Wehman, and we've had a fascinating program. Go back and review some of the other segments on YouTube, and go to AUN TV and check them out. We want to thank our affiliates for airing the program. Thank you so much, and thank you for listening and supporting the program. Go to our website, itnradio.com, and we acknowledge you, broadcast partners, because the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, has been deemed as the overseer of the broadcast entities, whether it's radio, TV, and all of these entities that you can broadcast and give out information. It's been abused lately, Frank.
Well, of course, under the Obama administration, there was an attempt to put monitors in newsrooms for shows such as ours so that the kind of news that you will hear will be exactly what the government wants you to hear. Clear violation of the First Amendment. There's been discussions, of course, about the outright censorship of Facebook, Twitter, and indeed Google itself in their search engine. And the question is, how do we address that? There's some question about having Section 230 revised so that the privileges enjoyed by these social websites are revoked and they have to be treated as a publisher rather than as a special case. There's another avenue to address as well, one which I wrote about in the Washington Times several years ago. Social media sites and Google should be treated as common carriers, just like American Airlines or your interstate bus company like Greyhound, in that the government will not control them, the government will not tell them what to do, but they are mandated to treat all comers equally. They cannot, as Facebook and Twitter have done, and as Google itself has done, simply decree that one side of the political coin gets priority and the other gets dumped on. That is going to be a central free speech issue going forward.
And if you would go to YouTube and if you look underneath our heading of WBV Inside the News, when you see that inserted paragraph in the shaded blue, that is them putting in that other little side note saying, oh, no, wait a minute. What they're going to be saying is not necessarily the truth. This is what, and they want you to consider that. That is really on the part of the censorship part there. And Ben, you can talk about that and then go on to your hot button.
Well, 230 exists if you're a neutral platform. It gives all these platforms immunity from slander and other damage claims, but you have to be neutral to honor the intent of Section 230. And it's obvious that all of these platforms are no longer neutral. They're highly biased. So there's no more justification for 230. But let me talk about my hot topic real quick. Some good news. We've had a gloomy show. A lot of bad things happening in this country right now. But good news, AOC attacked Goya Foods a couple of months ago. And Goya just released their earnings, and their sales in the month after AOC demanded a boycott of Goya Foods, their sales increased about 1,000%. And Goya named AOC the Employee of the Month in honor of her boycott. So I want to thank all of America for giving the proper response to AOC's call to boycott Goya Foods.
and AOC, we salute you. It's not Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's AOC, Employee of the Month. Okay, Frank, go.
almost totally ignored by the media, Charles Elwood Yeager passed away this week. He was a United States Air Force officer, a great ace. In wartime, he started his career in 1941 with the United States Army Air Force. And he was Mr. Right Stuff himself. If you look at the things he accomplished as a test pilot, there is a case to be made that he and that Yuri Gagarin was truly the first man in space, because he rose above the limit that most scientists believe is actually the defining line between the atmosphere and space, flying on the X-51, I think it was? X-15 experimental craft. Now, you have to ask, why is this being ignored by the media? Well, it's because anything that talks about American greatness, American accomplishment, American courage is now verboten in most of the media. We don't want to be a country that's seen as being a pioneering country, a great country, a country that has contributed so much for mankind. This is the reason why Chuck Yeager, Air Force ace, Mr. Right Stuff himself, why his obituary has been totally ignored by the media.
Fantastic. Good stuff there, Frank. Hey, Frank, thank you for a great show.
Great being with you. Look forward to being with you all next week.
And Ben, thank you.
I wish Merry Christmas to all of our listeners. Thank you.
All right. And thank you for listening as well. And I join with my colleagues. Join us again next week when we once again go Inside the News.
You're listening to Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio, Inside the News.